Welcome to a video that I'm doing. I have made this room a little bit hazy because I've been vaping in here. Really smart idea before filming a video, but I didn't really plan to film this video. I was like, let's make a video. Today, if you weren't already aware, is anyway, mental health awareness is a thing that needs to be done. You can never have too much awareness of mental health. I wanted to take this chance quickly, I hope, to talk about mental health and my experience of it, I suppose. I said a quick video. This could take a while. I'm gonna try and give a brief overview of my struggles with mental health, where I think it maybe started, all the stuff I've tried to do to fix me. We'll see where it goes from there, really. Let's get on with it. This is probably going to be a very heavy cut and shut job, so if I suddenly change room or it goes dark or whatever, then you know it's taken me a long ass time to film this. Pigeon. I very vividly remember the first time I was properly horribly distressed as a kid. I vividly remember having an art lesson in year 3 with my favourite teacher of all time. He's still my favourite. I still think he's amazing. If he's still teaching, those kids are really, really lucky. I consider myself super lucky to have had him as a teacher. But this is one day where he chose to do something, and it's not that I didn't agree with it. I think it's a really good lesson and that more teachers need to do lessons like that, but it just didn't suit me and who I was as a kid at the time. Did an art lesson and he was just kind of like, draw whatever you want to draw. Draw stuff without worrying about doing it wrong, which is kind of a big thing because the majority of school, especially once you get to secondary school and things like that, obviously it is about not making mistakes. So having the chance to make mistakes should have been a positive session, because it should have been like, look, it's okay, we make mistakes, we improve from them. So I was year 3, what's that? Is that like 6, 7 years old? Something around there. I remember visualising this guy's nose in my head and how I was going to draw it. And I tried to draw it and I did it wrong. I said, "Sir, can I please have a rubber? I've made a mistake." He said to me, "Well, no, you can't have a rubber. We're doing the whole make mistakes thing so that you can learn that mistakes aren't a bad thing." And I cried. I cried because I couldn't rub out this nose that I had drawn. I cried a long time about it. And even now when I think about it, I remember being distressed by not being able to rub out this fucking nose I'd drawn. So it's not really a mental health thing so much as my tendencies were already set. My tendency towards wanting perfection. Even though I was like 6, I just wanted my art to be perfect. If it wasn't perfect, all hell broke loose. Fast forward a couple of months, my primary school was really small, my first one, and there was me and 2 other girls in my year. There were boys as well, but there were 3 girls in my year. And school, you're kind of very set in, and it's like, well, you know, you make friends with people within your year. You don't play with people from out of your year because that's insane. Why would you do that? That is crazy. Hello! Yes, you're gonna be noisy. Noisy cozy boy. It's a tasty ear. Num 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 num. He's really not fazed by anything. Does not want to kiss. Right, you gonna leave me alone now? Is that what this is? Can I have another kiss? No? Okay. Go on then. Go away. I can't remember what I was talking about now. School! So yeah, there were me and 2 other girls in my year, and I thought we were friends, you know. As you do as a kid. It's just like, everybody is my friend. I'm telling a story! I'm just gonna have to live with a cat meowing all the way through this, basically. One of these girls was not very nice to me, which kind of a given in any school, but because there was only her and one other girl and me, the other girl decided, well, if I don't want to be treated like that, I need to side with this shitbag. I remember being backed up against a wall in the playground and being told that I wasn't good enough to play with these girls, and that kind of set things in my mind in motion that came back to haunt me for years later, which is great. Fast forward a little bit, I didn't have too many problems. I moved school, I went into secondary school, and obviously I dealt okay with it for a few years, like everybody does. I think year 9 SATs is when things went to shit a little bit, because there was a lot of stress and a lot of pressure to perform well and do shit. By the time GCSEs came around, I was pretty... I was struggling. I struggled quite a bit with self-harm. I missed a fair chunk of school towards the end of year 11, bit of year 10 as well. And generally things kind of went, you know, every time I thought I was maybe getting somewhere, I then didn't. I was seen by child and adolescent mental health services. Quite a lot of people who say that CAMHS are crap and they need scrapping. My experience with CAMHS was pretty damn good. My only problem is I didn't use it as well as I should have. Instead of talking about how I was feeling and how things were going and all the rest of it, I kind of hid behind teenage bravado, which I think is a problem for a lot of people, is that when they actually get round to seeking help and therapy, it's like, yeah, it's not as bad as I thought it was. And I had that, definitely. But my counsellor, she was really nice, and I thought, well, you know, if it gets any worse, at least I don't have a problem with seeing a therapist. My GP was fairly dismissive at first, you know. My mum took me to see him and he kind of went, "You think you're depressed? Really? You're quite young to be depressed." I was like 14 at the time. Does age come into it? All the way through it was kind of like, yeah, you'll grow out of it. What do you want, medication? Can we try talking first before we get straight on to drugs? So I had 4 years of going to CAMHS, occasionally talking to the school counsellor. That's a whole other ball game. The school counsellor asked me, well, why don't you, instead of hurting yourself, however you're doing it, self-harming and stuff, why don't you flick yourself with a rubber band or hold an ice cube against your skin? Because that's a real good way of handling destructive behaviours. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is kind of why we need mental health awareness. This was a fair while ago now. We're talking 10 years ago. But, you know, I kind of hope we've moved on from this point. So if you'd like to leave a comment underneath that says, yeah, it's not like this anymore, that would be lovely. That would be really reassuring. If it's still like this, then this day is well and truly needed. Alongside this, alongside going to see the school counsellor and eventually ending up going and seeing CAMHS, our head of year, because there were quite a few of us, the emo kids. Yeah, you'll grow out of being an emo kid. I feel like I fucking haven't, thank you very much. So the head of year would round up the emo kids every once in a while, and she'd have a chat with them, you know, like, why do you like listening to sad or angry music? I don't know, I enjoy angry music. Why is that? Then it got to a point where she started recognising that certain kids were harming themselves. She banned us from wearing anything like wrist warmers or the Claire's accessories, brightly coloured neon bangles that were in at the time, or the stretchy animal bands or whatever, so that she could easily check our wrists if need be. I mean, you can imagine how that went down. As far as I'm aware, there were certain people's parents who were informed. I think she called my mum one time when she'd noticed fresh marks. So what happened, realistically, instead of kids getting help, I mean, I got help. I was really lucky. I still consider myself really, really lucky. that my mum is fucking brilliant. She's really lovely. But other people are not so lucky, and to single kids out who probably having issues at home anyway, ring up parents and say your kid is hurting themselves, thought you should know. Like, what? I don't understand what parents are supposed to do with that information. I kind of understand why parents needed to be informed, but also there wasn't really anything put in place, not concrete, that was gonna help those kids. I mean, all that happened was everybody stopped harming themselves on their arms or anywhere visible, anywhere that could be checked by a teacher. You got a lot of kids self-harming on their legs or their chest or their upper arms to hide it, which is really not what you want. Even with the help of cams and stuff, I struggled with self-harm up until a couple of years ago. It was never massively bad. I never ended up with huge scars, but I know people who have done. I know people who are still very careful about what bits of skin they put on show because they're worried people will see their scars. I can understand why people don't know what to say, don't know what to do when they come face to face with something like this. I don't really know where I'm going with this anymore, I'm just kind of rattling off. So yeah, I got through school and I came out the other side of school. I somehow managed to get decent GCSEs. I then went to do art and design at college, and almost immediately, like after 6 weeks, I dropped out because I just had no confidence in myself whatsoever. I was just unable to deal with any kind of criticism, even if it was constructive. All I could hear was the bad stuff, and the bad stuff would just go round and round and round my head, and I was like, I am a terrible artist, I am never going to be good at anything, I'm going to be shit forever. Why am I doing art and design? So I quit art and design. Even if I had been in a better situation mental health wise, I probably still would have ended up not finishing that course. So here I am with a massive fucking painting sat behind me now. I love art, I still love art, but it's taken me years to get back into art. This is a work in progress, there's more to be done to it. So I kind of just tried to ignore my mental health for fuck knows how long. It took me losing my grandparents within 2 years of each other to really sort of go, well, life is shit. And that was kind of the catalyst point, the point where I went, I need to do something because this is just getting worse. The more I ignore it, the worse it gets. So I went to my GP and I said, well, I didn't say, I was so petrified of talking about it that I wrote a list. I wrote a list of how I was feeling. I said I was self-harming, that I thought about suicide on a regular basis, that I struggled with public transport. That was a manifestation of anxiety that was quite interesting. See a bus, throw up. Thanks, brain. I used to throw up every time before work. I used to throw up before going on the bus anywhere. And it's when your anxiety kind of gets to this point that you think, well, fuck. What do I do now? I went to my GP. I gave him this massive list of stuff, like filled little A5 page full of symptoms, and then on the back it was just basically me begging for help in written form. So I went, I went to the GP, I handed him this piece of paper and I sat there and watched him read it, and I was shaking and sweating and already on the verge of tears. And he turned around and said to me, I don't think you have depression. I think you're just a bit anxious. I wanted to scream at him because, the whole reason I went to the GP in the first place, the first time when I was like 14 or whatever, was because I was depressed. He continued on anyway. I don't think you're depressed. I think because you have quite bad anxiety that you know, that can make you feel a bit down sometimes. He said he'd refer me for CBT, and that referral never went through. So I waited another couple of years. I think I was 19 at that time. I waited another couple of years for it to get even worse. And then I asked a different GP to refer me for anxiety, for CBT or anything. I think at that point I got referred for CBT and I started on propranolol? I don't know how to pronounce it. A beta blocker. The problem with propranolol and beta blockers is that if you naturally have low blood pressure and going to the doctor sends your blood pressure sky high, when they take a blood pressure reading and go, you're okay to take beta blockers, as soon as you leave that situation and your blood pressure goes back to normal, the beta blockers that you then take your blood pressure down even further, so you feel like shit. You feel awful. You can't do anything because you have no fucking energy to do anything. So then you feel even worse because although you're not, like, you haven't got your anxiety brain and nothing is as scary as it once was, you're just laid in bed like, I can't do anything. Everything feels like shit physically. It felt like shit physically before, but now it's a different kind of shit physically. I tried beta blockers for a couple of months. And then I came off them. I went to CBT, and the person leading the CBT, I had no connection with her whatsoever. I just couldn't force myself, I couldn't bring myself to open up to her. And it sounds really fucking weird, but it was because she was so happy. The last thing I wanted when I went for therapy was somebody who was just sat grinning from ear to ear. It's like, this does not make me want to open up. This just makes me feel like shit. For some people it works, I get it. But it didn't work for me, and the one time I went to open up to this woman, she gave me this little piece of paper, flowchart thingy, and it was like, you write about what has triggered your anxiety, what has made it worse, what thoughts are going around your head, what is the physical outcome of it, and all that jazz. Which, you know, at the time I had had a streak of no self-harm for quite a few months, and then I broke that streak. So I was like, right, well, great, this is a topic that I can write about on this sheet. And she had said to me, you know, this is all stuff that you don't have to share, you can keep it to yourself, you can just use it for yourself. I took it in with me in my folder, just because I wanted to keep everything together. And when I saw her the next time, I mentioned that I'd used it, and I found it pretty helpful in sort of mapping out how things had gone and how I could have intervened and changed it at some point. And she asked if she could look at it, which for me was a massive break in trust, because it was just like, but you said I didn't need to show you it, you didn't need to see it. And I got my folder out and I scuffed around in it like, oh, I have forgotten the paper that I was supposed to bring. What a shame. It's like, don't tell me that I don't have to share stuff with you and then ask to see it. That was how my brain was working at the time. Nowadays I'd probably just go, no, you can't see it. This is for me. I stopped going to CBT. They discharged me. I just didn't turn up, didn't answer any of their calls, because at that point it was just like, And that was wrong of me to do. Undoubtedly. I should have actually rang up and said, I don't want to come anymore, or whatever. I should have done that. But I just couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I went a couple of years without any medication, without any therapy. Come in 2016. So I was like 23 years old. I found powerlifting. And when I went, I went, and I am sure, like a lot of the ladies who go to the gym, you write down that you want to lose weight, you want your body to look better, or some utterance of that. Some iteration of, I hate my body. Aside from that, I was not getting out and doing a whole lot. there was a lot of me being in bed sort of stuff. Just laying there thinking, what am I doing with my life? I started in the September of 2016 and was getting married in the November. So I was like, yes, lose weight before getting married. That's a brilliant idea. I didn't lose any weight. So I started powerlifting and I found out that actually I was pretty fucking strong and I was pretty good at powerlifting. And all that stuff was really, really good to hear and did a lot for my confidence. Then I got married, and the run up to the wedding and the honeymoon was like I was off my tits on just happiness. It was just incredible. It was the first time in a long time that I had just felt amazing constantly. And then we got to the January after that and it was like I went on sertraline and I asked to be referred for counselling on through Steps to Change, who had done my CBT. I got the phone call from Steps to Change and they kind of said the waiting list is 10 weeks. The waiting list before, the time before I'd used them, was like 6 weeks. 6 weeks had been intolerable. 10 weeks was going to be like, oh my god. I was quite worried that before those 10 weeks were over, were out, whatever, before the 10 weeks had passed basically, I was quite worried that I was going to do something very stupid. I ended up going for private counselling, which was the best decision I ever made. I could barely afford it, but I knew something was going to give in a big way if I didn't go. My first therapist at this new place I was trying, she was lovely but not quite right, and unfortunately she went off sick. So I ended up seeing another therapist and she was quite into CBT, but as soon as she said, oh, we'll try some CBT, I kind of went not that shit again. Because she saw me sort of visibly recoil when she mentioned CBT. She went, okay, what's your hang up with CBT? And I explained what had happened and she went, yeah, no, that's not really CBT and that's a really shitty thing for her to do. So we'll do it differently. And she did, and I'm not going to say I'm fixed. I'm never going to be fixed, but I'm better than I was. The beautiful thing about this therapy was, okay, I started paying for it, but after a while they said, oh, well, we've got some charity funding, so you just apply to this charity, and if you meet their criteria and they accept your application, they pay for your therapy. I still have a few sessions left, like a year later, that have been paid for. At first I didn't recognise the changes I was going through. I didn't recognise that I was slowly but surely getting better. It feels like all of a sudden a switch flicked and I was just like, my god, what have I been doing? Why have I been telling myself I'm not good enough? I clearly am. From all the way back from this girl at primary school telling me I wasn't good enough to play with them, I'd hung on to that saying of I'm not good enough. So going through secondary school and missing loads of time and being told that I wasn't going to meet the expectations that the teachers had set out for me, well, I'm just not good enough. Whenever I had problems with friends, well, I'm not a good enough friend. Whenever my house was messy, untidy and someone commented on it, oh, I'm not good enough at cleaning or tidying, I can't do any of this, none of it is good enough. And the problem is, when you repeat this to yourself constantly and you tell yourself that you're not good enough, enough is movable. There's no set measurement of enough. And when you say, I want to do enough, you can move the goalposts about. So what would have been, when you started out, enough, is no longer enough. You set yourself up for failure. And I was doing it every single day. And it took my therapist pointing it out to me for me to go, oh shit, yeah, I do that. It did not instantly change. It did not all of a sudden do a 180 and I'm like, I'm good enough now. I still have days where my brain does that horrible shit thing of going, you're not good at anything, you're not good enough. But for the most part, I have quite positive thoughts now about what I'm doing and me, myself, and all the rest of it. I guess what I'm trying to say here is if you're having thoughts about how you're not good enough and all of this, that and the other, or you're kind of denying that you've got a problem, nah, it's not bad enough for me to warrant seeing a therapist. No, please. Try, okay? Try therapy. Give it a go. Don't give up at the first hurdle. It's taken me school counsellor, CAMS, steps to change, and so about 5 counsellors total, all with different skill sets, all specialising in different stuff, to finally find the one who has helped me in the best way possible. And it has taken 10 years. The other thing that really helped, obviously, has been powerlifting. Find an exercise you love. Go and do that exercise a lot. It just kind of cements that you are good at something, I think, more than anything. And it gets you out, meeting people, doing stuff with those people. Reconnected a very close friendship of mine, which I don't know what I did without it beforehand. Like, I can't imagine my life now without that friendship. So it's been a culmination of trial and error on the medical stuff front, which the medicine wise, I just kind of steer clear. But if it works for you, that's good. That is a good thing. Therapy, been through a lot of therapy, a lot of different therapists. Having a support network, that is a big one that a lot of people struggle with, and I suppose this is why we have a Mental Health Awareness Day, because, you know, it is you guys who are there around us, who are friends, family, acquaintances, whatever, who make this a lot easier. You know, I have some very close friends who, we have all been through the ringer a bit, and we all try and support each other and sort of stick together, and, you know, somebody ring up and say, I'm having a shit day. Okay, do you want me to come over? I can come over like in 2 hours. Is that okay? Do you want me to bring chocolate or tea, biscuits, milk? Have you got bread? Do you want me to bring you some bread? I've got a ready meal in the freezer. I'll bring that over. Do you want to watch a film? Or do you want to just sit and cry? But we do that for each other, and it works really, really well. Unless everyone is having a shit time, and then it kind of falls flat on its face a bit. But I'm saying all of this, and in the back of my head all I can think is that mental health services are being stripped to the absolute bare bones. And that's quite scary. If you rely on those services, if you aren't as lucky as other people who have found a good therapist, who have found a combination of medication that works, who have a good support network, who have stuff that they love to do even when they're in the pits of depression and they're just like,